Hello, welcome back to my channel, She Sews Happiness. My name is Mary Ellen and today's video is going to be all about what I've been making in January thus far. I'm aware that January is not yet over and there will be a few more makes, hopefully, if I get time to do them. But I wanted to share with you what I've been making up to this point so that my videos don't end up being overly long. But I do recommend you grab yourself a cup of tea or a glass of wine if it's after watershed, and we can just chat about what I have been making. So if you know anything about me at all, you'll know that one of my favourite aesthetics when I'm making my garments is vintage inspired. Now, I started off the year making a dress that was familiar to me. It was from this book, Gertie Sews Jiffy Dresses, and it was the boat neck dress. A dress that I made very, very early on in my sewing journey, before I ever knew anything about fitting patterns, adjusting patterns, manipulating darts, you name it. I didn't know an awful lot at the very beginning. Since then, I've applied everything that I've learned to this pattern, and I now have a dress pattern that I can go to whenever time is short and I don't really want to be toiling and starting something new. So the boat neck I have now perfected for me. I've made a few classic modifications. So I've done a full bust adjustment, I've done a bicep adjustment. I have also shifted the darts so that they're hitting my bust apex. I have graded out at the waist from the high bust. I have made a few changes. I think that's most of the major ones, but it's enough to be substantial and it's enough for it to fit really, really well. And now I have a basic bodice that I can use, add different sleeves to, add different skirts to, whatever I wish to do with it. It's now ready to go anytime I'm short of time. So I used a beautiful 100% cotton red tartan fabric, which I got from Simply Fabrics Brixton. And I'm really, really loving this dress. I have kept it with the short sleeves. I know it's winter. I still like a short sleeve because I'm very partial to throwing a cardigan or a bolero over my makes. And I prefer to wear jackets with shorter sleeves rather than long because sometimes lining just causes me so much issues. It really irritates me. And I know that sounds really petty, but it does. So that's what I decided to do. And it also means that even as I go into spring, I can still wear this dress because it's not too warm. Now, one of the big changes that I have made to this pattern is I've decided to fully line it. The pattern itself is intended just to have a facing, but I think when you're working with fabrics that have less body and less structure, it's really good to actually line those to get that really nice, close fitted vintage silhouette. And it also ensures, for me at least, that I have a really nice, clean neckline, both back and front. And the neckline of this dress has a lovely scoop back detail and I wanted that to be right. So another change that I made to the pattern was to move the zip to the side of the dress so that I didn't have any interruption on the back of the bodice. And that has definitely worked really well. So that was the first thing I made at the beginning of the year. And then as I was making that, one of the things that has been really irking me recently just kind of boiled over. And I noticed that while I was making that dress, my ironing board cover had got ridiculous. All the little marks from interfacing, all the little snips that had been taken out of it from cutting things on it, which is probably not a great idea, but it was just a little bit worse for wear. And so I decided to take on the project of refacing it. Now I did do this way back when I first started sewing. I did recover my ironing board. So it's lasted about 18 months, which is not bad going. And I know in 18 months I'll want to do it again. Now this time I redid everything. I actually took off whatever wadding was on there and replaced that as well. Everything had pretty much seen better days. So now I have this brand new, beautiful, clean ironing board on which to work from now on. So I know that's not very exciting, but for me it was a big, big difference because I just like having a lovely clean surface to work off. And then after that, I moved on to making another familiar to me pattern. So over the Christmas holidays, I got out my copy of the Decades of Style ESP dress, which I have been meaning to make for pretty much as long as I have been sewing. It's a pattern I bought at least 18 months ago, and it has sat there in my stash. And I think as time goes on and as new patterns are released and new projects are just there in the front of your mind, those are the things you kind of focus on. And so I was going through my pattern stash, which is actually ridiculous, and I discovered the ESP dress. Now, it's kind of marketed as a dress you can sew in a day. And yes, it is a dress you can sew in a day, but only once you get the fit right. And it took me a few tries to get it right. The first time I made it in a brushed cotton from the rag shop, and I'll just stick a picture in here for you to see. And I did do a quick toile in calico before I started, and then once I made it in this brushed cotton, I realized my toile was worthless because the way the fabric moved completely changed that. So I decided the next time I was going to make the dress, I would make it from the same fabric as a toile before I start it. And I know that adds the expense up, but I really wanted to get it right. So I bought for Christmas a beautiful Spoonflower print. It was part of the challenge that I was running with Bobo Bun, a very vintage Christmas, and I just wanted something that had that real retro vintage charm. So I went to Spoonflower, and that's why I wanted to get it right, because you may or may not have bought from them before, but their fabrics are not cheap, but yet the designs are so incredible. So I really had to have this, but I wanted to get it right. And I'll show you a picture of the final dress that I'd made, and this is my Christmas Eve dress, and I did finally get the fit spot on. So I've made it again, and I've made it this time from this gorgeous cotton poplin that I've had in my stash from Emporia fabrics for several months now, and it is just so beautiful. But it's got these gorgeous little rabbits and mushrooms and things on there, and it's such a ditzy little print. It reminds me a little bit of Calf Kidson. And so this is what I do when I get a pattern that I've worked on and I'm really happy with how it fits. I can then just go to that when time is really short, and time is short when you go back to work and things like that after the holidays as well. And I made up this beautiful little version of the ESP dress, and I just love it. It's so cute and quirky, and it's actually a dress that I'll be able to wear throughout all of the seasons as well. So that one is a win. After that, I moved on to a Cashmerette pattern. Now, I have recently just discovered Cashmerette in that I've discovered making their patterns. I've known about them obviously for a long time as a curvy girl. As I started my sewing journey, it was one of the very first companies I ever came across. And I bought a few of their patterns, but I'd never made them. And I think what put me off making them was actually the samples that you see on the covers. And I hope this comes across the way it's intended. But to me, the patterns seem really sensible. And I'm not a very sensible person. I like quirky clothes. I like things that are a little bit different. So when I see things that are quite moderate, they don't really inspire me to make them. So what really got me to try this one was that I had just made a couple of versions, and maybe I should start with that. I'd made a couple of versions of this dress. So this is the all-cut dress. And I basically used it for New Year's Eve for the dress I was making then. I had a beautiful gold jersey knit fabric from New Craft House. And because it was a gold sparkle knit, I needed a pattern that was really plain. And that's what made me go back to my stash of patterns where I rediscovered this. And I thought, given the fact that I was using this sparkly fabric, this very basic, very plain garment would be perfect to match with that. So the all-cut dress is very simple. It's basically a fixed wrapped bodice, otherwise known as a surplice bodice. It has an empire waistline. Now, usually I avoid these because I always figure they're not very flattering for curvier figures. I associate the empire waistline with, you know, the Bridgerton dresses, which are very column-esque. And it was something I always just avoided. But this skirt actually has a bit of a flare in it, and there is a full knee length skirt or a ruffled midi length skirt, and you can choose really to add the ruffles or not. I decided not to. Ruffles are not really my thing, but there is enough of a flare in that skirt that it doesn't sit column-esque, and it actually does kind of flatter the curves rather than cling to them, which I kind of love. It emphasizes it without being too clingy. And then you have a couple of versions of sleeves as well. So I made my gold knit fabric and I loved it. I loved this dress. And I realized that I had been underestimating the power of a simple make all along. So then this month I did revisit it. I had a beautiful burgundy with gold rose print velvet in my stash, which I had bought about 1.5 years ago when I first started sewing from Fabric Godmother, and I decided to make it up. Now, this was really easy. When I first made this, it was a really simple sew. When I started making it in velvet, it was a bit of a pain, but that's when I actually discovered that my machine wasn't working very well, and it was actually cutting my fabric and getting it caught up, which I've never encountered with my machine for the entire 7 months that I've had it. Never had an issue until I started sewing this garment. Now, it turned out it wasn't the fabric's fault. The automatic thread cutter had slipped inside the machine, and that's why there were problems, but it has since been fixed. So yeah, I really love this dress, and I will probably make it again. I haven't actually made any alterations to the pattern. The only thing I did, I think I took out like about 3/4 inches from the neckline to make sure I had that nice snug tight fit, but actually the pattern accounts for that anyhow by sewing elastic into the neckline, so it just sits so perfectly. And this is actually a pattern that comes with maternity hacks as well, so if you're looking for a dress to make to get you through maternity, this is the one you want to look for. Also really good for breastfeeding with the way there's elastic built into this, so it makes it really easy to get in and out. So after I discovered I loved the way Cashmerette created their patterns, I tried this. Now, my usual go-to for a crop cardigan is Jennifer Lauren Handmade, the Juniper cardigan, but I decided to make this to try out a little round neck, which again isn't my usual style. I have a fear of it being a little bit too mumsy for me. I like a V-neck, but I think this might have converted me. I did make the cropped version of this. There is a hip length version as well, but the one I've decided to make was this little cropped version. And this is a fabric which I had been gifted from Minerva as part of their ambassador program, and it was a really unusual fabric. I've never seen anything like it before. It's 100% cotton again, and it's a cotton waffle, but it was a cotton waffle knit, and I'd never encountered that, and it was an absolute pleasure to sew with. It has so much structure and stability. You could almost make like a jacket or a blazer out of it if you wished. So yeah, I really like this. It has enough of a retro vibe for me to put it in my wardrobe, which is great. Although if you're looking for a really vintage styled cropped cardigan, probably Juniper is the place to start. I like the fact that the Juniper is very fitted. Now, I have looked at the Cashmerette blog, and Jenny has made comment that if you do prefer a more fitted cardigan, actually size down 2 sizes at the waist, and you'll get that effect with this cardigan as well. So I'll try it again and see how I go from there. So what else have I been making then? I'm actually looking here to see what else I have made. Oh, I made another ESP dress. So I'm not going to say very much about that. I'll just pop an image in here so that you can see. I had this beautiful art gallery cotton, which really needed to be sewn up because again, it had been gifted to me by Minerva. So if you want to check that out, there is a blog on my Minerva profile, She Sews Happiness, and all the details of that make are over there, as are the ones about the cardigan too. Other than that, then I have finally made the Berlin top by Stitch Witch Patterns. Again, been in my stash for an absolute age, and I've made it out of some bamboo jersey from Sew Me Sunshine. Really beautifully soft fabric, which is an absolute pleasure to wear. And I've been trying to work a few more separates into my wardrobe. I don't wear an awful lot of separates, so we'll see how we go. That's one of my things I said I'd do this year, is try to get a few more skirt, top, blouse combos into my wardrobe, just for a little variation. And there is a reason why I don't wear them, which I might elaborate on in the future. After that, what did I make? So yeah, basically because I'd made a top, I thought I'm going to make a skirt, and I made this little skirt, which you would never know is actually made from the Stanwyck skirt pattern by Charm Patterns. Doesn't look anything like it, does it? But really all I wanted was a lovely floaty everyday skirt that I could use when I was at home, or even just wear into the office if I had to as well. So basically all I did was I used the pattern pieces for the Stanwick, but I shaved off about a foot. I mean, I'm only 5'1" anyhow, so the Stanwick actually would drown me and I'd have to take off half a foot anyhow, but I wanted it to be floaty. So I made it in this beautiful twill that's been in my stash for a long time, which I got from Rainbow Fabrics Kilburn. I'd previously made the Tamsin dress from the copper orange version of this fabric, and I'll pop a picture in there because I love it. It's one of my favorite go-to autumn dresses. And so I finally used up the red version, which I was tempted to turn into another Tamsin, but I didn't need another one. I already have a plain black one as well. So the other thing then that I have made is a Peter Pan bolero. I had to think there for a moment what it was, but I made another Peter Pan bolero, and if you follow me on Instagram, you'll know it's not the first, and you'll also know it's not the last one I'll ever make. So again, this fabric, and I have it actually just sitting here because it was on. So it's here. So this fabric was again from Rainbow Fabrics Kilburn. It's very interesting. If I just bring it up here, you can see it's got this gorgeous flocked velvet polka dots. And I just thought it made it interesting enough to create a second black version in my wardrobe. I have a plain black one, which I made from a Ponte Roma that I got previously from Jenny Stitches Fabrics. But this one I got from Rainbow Fabrics Kilburn, and I just loved it the minute I saw it. It's hard to beat just a polka dot vibe, whether it's visible or not really. So those little velvet spots just elevated it. And I just love the colour. I love the colour on this. And you can see sneaking out there is my little Rosy Cheeks label. And that's one of my current favourites. I am unique. I've been sewing that onto quite a lot of my makes recently. So that was the last thing that I made in terms of garments. Whenever I'm not sewing my garments, so say for instance I'm binging on The Witcher or something like that, I always like to have a little hand project at hand. So I do some cross stitch and a little bit of embroidery and things, but really those come from subscription boxes. So I'll show you what I did this month. So this was a project here that I got in my subscription box from Cotton and Twine. And it's a little cross stitch which you turn into a banner for Christmas. Now this just arrived on Christmas Eve, so of course it wasn't ready for Christmas, but now it's there. I can pop it away ready for next year, and I think it'll look beautiful just in my hallway or over the dresser or something like that. So that was one of the projects I've worked on at the start of January. The second is this little embroidery project which came in the winter craft pod. I absolutely adore this. I'm not great with embroidery, I have to be honest. I'm not very skilled with embroidery, but I think when you get these subscription boxes, and craft pod to me is one of the best, you really can try out your hand at these projects to see if it's worth really looking and focusing and learning bits and pieces of it. So this one was really good because actually you learned how to applique as well. So the little owl is actually appliqued onto the embroidery. And yeah, I think that's actually something I would like to start working into my handmade wardrobe as well. So it was a nice little skill to learn. And of course now I have another hoop to add to my hoop wall. I have a little wall of like hoop framed works in my craft room, in my sewing space. And I just love it, it's so pretty. And it's nice to display the work that you've got as well. So that's me, that's my roundup for January so far. I do have a couple more makes in the works, and I will come along and share those with you a bit later on in the month. But for now, happy sewing. Thank you for watching. Please do subscribe if you're enjoying my channel, as new as it may be. And do give me a like if you've enjoyed watching it. And yeah, any comments or any questions you've got, pop them in the messages below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.